What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the super cheap turbo Civic. We'll take it for a ride, have some fun with it, then we'll cover some of the budget parts that we used to put this car together and how they're holding up over a year later. Then, of course, we're going to have to cover anything that I would have done differently or changed looking back on it now. So let's get through the intro and jump right into today's video. Now that we've gotten through the intro, just in case some of you are new to the channel, I'm going to give a very brief history of the car's life on our channel. So about 2 years ago, we picked this thing up as a bone stock automatic Civic for $500. Now obviously it's been through a whole bunch of revisions at this point because it currently has a fully built D-Series, a manual transmission, and a big turbo. Now throughout the whole build on this car, we've always tried to use as much budget options as physically possible. And honestly, I don't know the exact dollar amount that we have into this thing at this point, but I have to tell you, it is surprisingly low. So today we're going to drive this thing around, have some fun with it. Normally I would be talking about it as we drive it around, but it is extremely hot here today, so I'd have to have the windows down and the audio would be absolutely horrendous. So we're going to bounce back and forth between the garage and the car. So first things first, let's get this thing fired up, go out, have some fun with it, and see how this thing runs. So like I mentioned before, we originally picked this car up for $500, so the body definitely leaves a little bit to be desired, but structurally this thing was pretty sound. Now as you can see, we did lower it and we did change the wheels. For the lowering kit, we went with the cheapest kit that we could find on Amazon. They are just a coilover style sleeve that goes over the stock shocks. Now everything that we're going to see in today's video, I have a dedicated video on, so if you guys want any more information on anything we talk about today, make sure to go back on the Honda playlist and check those videos out. But the coilover sleeves have honestly not given us a single bit of issue, and they have worked perfectly. They do ride a little bit on the stiffer side, but I wouldn't exactly say they're bouncy. They're just a little bit stiffer, and the car definitely handles much better now that it's lowered down. Now as far as the wheels go, we got these for free. I believe they're off a Honda Fit. I had a buddy that was scrapping a car. These wheels and tires were on it, so we went over, took a look at them, and we swapped them out for our Steelies. Again, they fit perfectly, and I think they make the car look much better than it did beforehand. Now the headlights, we got those at a swap meet for 20 bucks. A little bit of the clear coat is chipping off here and there, but again, for a $500 Civic, I think they make the car look a lot better. Now as far as the muffler that you guys can see from the back of the car here, this is an Evil Energy 3-inch straight through muffler, and in my opinion, it is perfect on this thing. It doesn't inhibit flow, and it sounds really good. It toned it down just enough to where it's got like a nice deeper tone. It got rid of all the rasp and the fart candy type sound, so really happy with how that turned out, and I believe they're only around $30. Now if you guys want to pick up anything from Evil Energy, I will link our discount code in the description below so that you guys can save a few bucks at checkout. So let's get this thing fired up, go take it for a ride, and see how it runs. Let's fire this thing up and go take it for a ride. This thing's always made really good oil pressure ever since we put this engine together for it. When it's colder, it's even higher than that, and then when it's hot, idles around probably 30 to 35, I'd say, when it's warmed up. So we'll let this thing get a little bit of heat in it, and we'll go take it for a ride. Alright, let's take this thing for a little drive. I've been basically daily in this thing. I would like to get the AC working though. We'll go make a couple pulls, see how this thing does. It's really hot out today. We just topped it off with some E85. Looks like we're at 62% ethanol today. good for being on this super cheap suspension. For learning how to tune this thing myself, I've been really happy with the drivability. You guys can see, being lowered like this, it actually handles so much better. Before, it would just be wishy-washy every time you got into any kind of corner. As you can see, this thing absolutely rips for what it is. So we're going to start right off with our forced induction. So we're currently running a MaXpeedingRods GT3076R dual ball bearing turbo. It is a coolant-cooled turbo, and we've had it on here for a little over a year, making 30 plus pounds of boost. The car is now on E85, and we've really been leaning on it. We've been using our two-step, our anti-lag, and this thing has just taken everything that we could throw at it. So all in all, the MaXpeedingRods Turbo has been holding up great. We still have the smaller T04E turbo that we had on the stock engine when we first put this car together. It's up on the shelf waiting for another project because it as well worked perfectly. Again, if you guys want to pick something up from MaXpeedingRods, I'll have our discount code in the description down below. You guys can save yourself a few bucks on a nice turbo. Now, as far as the engine goes, we pieced this thing together from Facebook Marketplace. I think there was only a handful of things that I actually bought new. So off of Facebook Marketplace, we got the ACL oil pump. Now, if you guys know much about the Z6 and D16 Y8, this is a Y8 base. So we couldn't really find much for an oil pump unless you go with like a 4P ported pump, which is a decent amount of money. But we came across this ACL D16 Z6 oil pump on Facebook Marketplace, lumped in with a whole bunch of other parts that we bought. So again, you guys can go back and check out that video. We covered all of that and how we made it work on this engine. Now, along with that oil pump from Facebook Marketplace, the same guy was selling a set of Eagle rods, Vitara pistons, a Comp Cam 59300 camshaft, which we decided to pick all of that up, along with a D16 Z6 crankshaft that was fresh from the machine shop. Now, I got all of those parts for under $350, so it was an absolute steal. So if you guys are trying to piece something like this together, make sure you keep an eye on Facebook Marketplace. All of this stuff was brand new in the package, never installed, never ran. Most of it was still sealed up. So we got a really killer deal on all of those parts, and honestly, they're holding up phenomenal. Now, while we were in there, I did decide to hand port the cylinder heads, and we decided to fill the block with epoxy. We picked it up right on eBay. I believe his name is Chris Boyette. It's like $100-ish for the kit to do the epoxy. Now, when I first did that, I definitely made a mistake, and looking back on it, I would have changed how I did it. But if you guys want to see what happened there, you can go back and check out that video. All in all, though, it's still holding up great. The car cools perfectly fine, even on a hot summer day. We've never had any type of heating issues. So all in all, the epoxy is holding up. The hand-ported head, I'm not sure how it flows versus a stock one. I'm not sure if I helped it or hurt it, but it seems to be perfectly happy with this combination and the Comp 59300 camshaft. So one of the parts that we did have to buy new were a set of Crowder valve springs. Couldn't find a U-set that would work for what we were trying to do, but I did keep the stock keepers and retainers. Like I said, we tried to keep this car as budget as physically possible. And then I also ordered up a new set of ARP head studs. Couldn't find a set that was new for the Y8 on Marketplace, so we had to go new for those as well. But as far as the engine goes, that pretty much covers everything as far as the engine itself. But there are so many other things that you have to get this turbo kit working properly, like all of the components for the turbo kit itself, blow-off valve, wastegates, intake air temp sensors, as well as our entire fuel system. So let's go make some more pulls, have a little more fun with this thing, and then we'll start talking about all the supporting goodies.
dialed in, and for tuning it myself, I'm really happy with it.
So one place that I was willing to spend a little bit of extra money and step out of budget a little bit was in the ECU department. So when we bought this car, I wanted to start learning how to tune, so we decided to go with a Hondata S300 V3. And like I said, there's a few reasons I did that. I wanted the expandability of being able to put in inputs and outputs, as well as run E85 electronic boost control and boost by gear. And 2 years later, I have to say I'm really happy that I went with the Hondata, because I have learned a whole bunch on tuning, and I basically tune the car myself now. I also love the fact that Hondata has been around so long that you can hop on Google with anything you're trying to figure out, and you can pretty much find the answer to your question. Now, like I said, it did give us the ability to run E85 electronic boost control and boost by gear, which we are utilizing all of that, including some of the extra inputs. So we're running a Low Dollar Motorsports fuel pressure sensor and a Burton Racing flex fuel kit, and we'll talk about our boost control setup a little bit later in the video. Another thing that plays a huge role in how your project runs are your fuel injectors. So we've been working with Clean Injection for a little while now. We've ran their 700 cc's and now their 1500 cc injectors, and they have both been flawless. They come with a great data sheet to help you put it right into your tune and get this thing up and running. I've been really happy with them, and I've even made some videos declaring these the best budget option injector, and I still stand behind that. They have been working absolutely flawlessly, even on E85. Now we need to supply fuel to those injectors, so we're running a Walbro 450 liter per hour in-tank pump, and then a full Evil Energy fuel system. So we are running their PTFE lines as well as their fuel pressure regulator. Both of those have been absolutely flawless. Their lines go together really easy. They've been holding up to E85 no problem, and the fuel pressure regulator modulates the fuel pressure based off of our boost, which is absolutely perfect, and it's doing exactly what it should, rising 1-to-1 with our boost pressure. So that pretty much covers the fuel system. So let's have a little more fun with this thing, and then we can start talking about the turbo kit that we pieced together. Ever since we got this thing on E85 and started turning up the boost, it has been an absolute blast. So let's talk about the turbo kit a little bit. This is the same basic kit that we pieced together for this thing back when it was still on a stock engine. So it's an eBay, Amazon style exhaust manifold. It is a top mount, and then the wastegate is on the bottom. It is a very thick cast iron piece. It's extremely heavy, but we haven't had any issues with it. It hasn't cracked or anything like that. And the reason I picked this one was mainly because the turbo was on the top and the wastegate still seemed like it had decent priority, and it does seem to work pretty decently well even with our cheap wastegate. Now the only issue we did have with it was I had to grind down some of the casting a little bit, but it is extremely thick, so that hasn't been a problem at all. Now as far as the turbo goes, you guys already know we're still running a MaXpeedingRods GT3076R dual ball bearing turbo. This one is coolant and oil cooled. Now before that we were running their TO4E turbo. We didn't really have any issues out of either of them. This car does make a ton of oil pressure, so when we had the TO4E on there, it would smoke a little bit on decel, but we cut back how much oil it was getting and it was perfectly fine after that. Same thing with our GT3076R. We have had no issues with that either. Now down to the wastegate, we are still running an Amazon knockoff wastegate. I think it was like 60 bucks, and it does the job just fine. The only complaint with that was the spring size. So we tried to use some springs from another project when we first got this car together, and they were just a little bit off, so it was hard to find something that fit it decently. but once we switched over to our electronic boost control and just had a soft spring in there, it has been perfectly fine ever since. Now that leads us down to our intercooler. Again, this one was from eBay. I think it was right around $100, and it's just an aluminum 3-inch thick intercooler. And as long as you're driving this thing around and making boost, it stays nice and cool. Even on 30 pounds of boost, we don't see our intake air temps climb at all during or immediately after the pull. The only time we see our AATs go up is when we're sitting at a light or if you're just sitting here idling. So all in all, that intercooler actually works exceptionally well. Now leading up to our blow-off valve, once again, this is from Amazon. I believe it was the cheapest blow-off valve I could find at the time, coming in right around $30. Now that does come with a couple different springs and a little adjuster on top. Now we found that if you mess around with that adjuster, it'll make it do some weird stuff. So we just back it all the way off, run the screw down until it touches, and then tighten the jam nut. But other than that, it's been perfectly fine. Now, when we first built this turbo kit, I was trying to keep it as budget as possible, so we used only what we had laying around, which consisted of a whole bunch of 2.5-inch old exhaust tubing, and we just MIG welded it all together. Now, as you guys can see, it is still holding up fine. It's held 30 plus pounds of boost and done the job exactly as needed. But looking back at it, that's one spot I definitely would have spent a little bit more time and a little bit more money buying some aluminum charge piping to TIG weld and make it look a little bit nicer, just like we did on our ProCharge GTO. But would I do it again in that situation? Probably. MIG welding it with the mild steel exhaust tubing made it extremely easy, and then we just painted everything so it wouldn't rust. So all in all, the turbo kit is still doing its job perfectly fine. We could just pretty it up a little bit. Now that leads us to our water meth injection system. So a while back, I did a video making the cheapest possible water methanol injection system using our windshield washer tank and our windshield washer pump with a little water spray nozzle that we mounted directly in the inlet of the turbo. And honestly, it worked just fine. But again, looking back at it, I would probably upgrade that system a little bit. I'd like to keep the windshield washers for the windshield and then just add a cheap little plastic tank with an actual high pressure methanol injection pump to get this thing working a little bit more efficiently. But honestly, it does the job and it does work just fine. We do actually see a little bit of a difference when we're spraying. Now that it's on E85, we haven't really had the need to spray it, but when it's really hot out, we can set it up so that it does spray a little bit when we're in high boost. So that pretty much covers our entire turbo kit. Now let's move on to the drivetrain. Alright guys, so that leaves us with our drivetrain. The drivetrain in this car is actually extremely simple and very basic. So as you know, when we first got the car, it had an automatic transmission, so that had to go right off the bat. So we started looking on Facebook Marketplace, and I found a guy that was parting out a car. He was going to scrap it, and I got the transmission, the shift linkage, the clutch and brake pedal that we needed, as well as a stock clutch, all for 150 bucks. We got it home, cleaned it up, I hit it with a coat of paint and threw it in. Now I did decide to put a stage 1 XCD clutch in when we still had the stock engine and the smaller turbo, and it worked perfectly. I actually really enjoyed that clutch. It drove almost as good, if not better than stock, and it just had great manners. It grabbed really good, and like I said, you could daily that thing anywhere. Now once we decided to upgrade to the built engine and the bigger turbo, I did decide to get a comp stage 4 6-puck sprung clutch, and this one drives pretty good. Obviously coming from that stage 1, it's completely different. That one drove much better, but as far as grabbing goes and holding the power, this comp stage 4 has been absolutely perfect. Now it is a little bit aggressive for a daily driver, but it was one of those things I didn't want to have to change it out later down the road when we started turning this thing up, and I'm glad that we did it because it drives just fine. And I have a twin disc in our ProCharge GTO, and honestly the one in the Honda being a 6-puck, it's still easier to drive than that car. So all in all, I would do it again. I think it holds the power just fine. Now as far as the rest of the transmission goes, it is bone stock axles, all of that stuff. It still has an open diff in it. Now, it does grind going from second to third when you're wide open making a pull, so I would like to find another transmission to go through, refresh, and hopefully find a used LSD for. I've been trying to track one down, keeping with the theme of this car, and try to find a used one so that we can clean it up, get it for a good price, and slap it in, but they've been extremely hard to track down. So that pretty much covers the drivetrain. Like I said, very basic, very simple, but it's doing the job just fine. So that basically sums up our super cheap turbo Civic. We've had a whole bunch of fun with this car, and it's been a blast to build on the channel, and we're not done with it yet. We've still got some other stuff to do to this thing, and potentially even do an engine swap in the future, but we've just been having a ton of fun with the D series in it right now. So I wanted to make this video so that you guys could see just how much fun we have for not a whole lot of money invested, and how this thing has been holding up 2 years after we got it and a year after the full engine build with the big turbo. So really the turbo kit itself and all the turbo kit components have much more than a year on them, but our big turbo and our built engine have right around a year on them, along with the clutch. So all in all, this thing has been holding up really good. Now I do want to just touch on a couple things that I probably would do a little bit differently looking back on it. So like I mentioned earlier, the turbo kit itself, I wish that I went through and spent a little bit of extra time and a little bit of extra money doing an aluminum charge piping kit. Now we've built them before and we have the ability to, and the aluminum just comes out much nicer, it's lighter, it dissipates heat a lot easier as well. But the mild steel has been holding up just fine. We've had absolutely zero issues with it, so I can't really complain. It's just one of those things, it would have been nice to go with it aluminum. Now another thing that I might change looking back on it would be the wastegate. So having a better wastegate would definitely help our boost control when we were first setting it up, and just making sure that we're more consistent. Now it is working just fine now with the electronic boost control, but if we were gonna run this thing off of springs, I'd probably splurge and buy a name brand wastegate. As far as everything else goes though, it's been holding up extremely well. Now I have to give another huge shout out to the companies that have helped build this car. So Clean Injection, they have been a huge support. Their injectors have been absolutely flawless, especially now on E85. These 1500s absolutely love it, but the 700s did phenomenal as well. And then a huge shout out to Evil Energy for getting us this muffler and keeping this thing sounding nice, as well as the full fuel system. Their regulator and all their PTFE lines, as well as their catch can, have been doing absolutely phenomenal. So really happy with how this whole thing has turned out. As always, I appreciate you guys for checking out the channel. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and check us out on all of our other social media platforms: Facebook, TikTok, and Bought to Build Official on Instagram. Also, just in case you guys haven't seen, we did decide to open up channel memberships. So if that's something that interests you and you want to help support the channel or get your name up here in the shop, make sure to go and check that out. As always, I appreciate you for sticking around to the end, and we will catch you on the next one.
Bye.